Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yo, what's good, original crew? It's your boy DJ New Kid, your girl
Sierra Nicole.
We back on the channel with another
Kid and C original.
Welcome back to the channel, man. We got a good one for y'all today. We got 10 shocking deathbed murder confessions. I ain't with it. I don't know what to say about today. Just know we're finna get some deathbed confessions. So with that being said, before we get into it, make sure y'all check out the links in the description box down below. You already know where to go. If you want to further support, just always check down below. Also, you see it. Shout out to you coming of the day, man. So with that being said, we got, again, 10 shocking deathbed murder confessions.
It's supposed to be crazy.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's about. You ready, girl?
I'm ready.
All right.
Happens in people's minds when they know they're going to die. In some cases, those deathbed confessions can turn the tables and solve unanswered cold cases. Here are 10 shocking deathbed murder confessions. Before we get to it though, remember to subscribe to All Time 10s. Got it? Let's go.
Sorry.
Number 10. Sharon Diane Crawford Smith. An awful, cold-blooded murder happened in Richmond, Virginia in 1967. The two sisters-in-law, Smoots Havana, 19, and Carolyn Havana Perry, 20, were shot to death at the Hyde's ice cream local store, where they both worked. The killer was never found until 2009. That's when 60-year-old Sharon Diane Crawford Smith, suffering from a terminal illness, confessed she murdered the two girls. Smith told the police that she went to the store to ask for a day off. Then, to quote Smith, one thing led to another. Smith also told the police that the two sisters kept teasing her for being a lesbian and she couldn't bear it anymore. She provided a motive and pretty accurate details that only the murderer could have known. But then what did she do with the murder weapon? She explained she gave the gun to a friend and police detective David Bocock. Unfortunately, the authorities could never find out if Bocock knew about the murder or if he was simply trying to save some trouble for his friend. Smith died soon after her last interview and Bocock had already perished in 2006.
Wow.
Number...
Bro,
That's
you talking about
crazy.
deathbed confession, bro? The
That's
only reason why she confessed is because she was dying.
Yeah.
She was going to take that to her grave, but she was like, let me go ahead and say this before I die. Like, what kind of... Come on,
9.
man.
James Brewer. You know how karma works by now, don't you? When you do something bad, then something bad will come back and happen to you, and vice versa. Okay, well if you didn't know, now you do. Here's an example that confirms that rule. In 2009, following a stroke, 58-year-old James Brewer believed he was going to die soon. So he confessed that in 1977, he killed his neighbour, Jimmy Carroll, because he believed Carroll tried to seduce his wife. At the time, Brewer was arrested in Tennessee on suspicion of shooting the man dead. Yet he jumped bail and fled to Oklahoma, where he and his wife began a new life under assumed names and lived happily for 32 years.
Damn.
But when it became clear death was soon approaching, he felt the urge to clear his conscience. That's kind of a good thing, I guess, but here's the twist. Unexpectedly, Brewer recovered and had to surrender to Tennessee's authorities. So while this was indeed a deathbed confession, it wasn't quite as final as he might have thought.
Exactly.
Number 8. Harvey Richardson. We usually think of librarians as very mild, dare I say boring people, but let's dispel the myths, they aren't, which is not necessarily a good thing. In 2008, Harvey Richardson, a retired librarian, aged 77, died from colon cancer at a hospice in Liverpool. Following his death, the decorators who were cleaning out his house found a bag containing Richardson's detailed, handwritten 9-page confession to the 1970 unsolved murder of 19-year-old Lorraine Jacob. Richardson was never a suspect to the police. He had no previous convictions, and there was only one report of him being drunk as a young man. Yet when detectives went through the confession, it contained information that no one could possibly have known. The letter revealed that a drunken Richardson met Miss Jacob after 11 PM on the night of the murder. They walked together for a while, then an argument broke out. In a fit of rage, Richardson strangled Miss Jacob. Even if, for obvious reasons, Richardson could not get to trial, the police decided there was sufficient evidence to consider Richardson responsible for Jacob's murder. So the lesson here, folks, is beware of librarians. Number 7, Roy Heath. Who's
an old librarian? Just like you would never have.
Yeah.
Like he had no kind of signs, and he probably been thinking about that, or is that his only kill? Because he sit there and wrote details. It never left his mind for him to be able to write details and kept it after all these years. Or it could have been his only one.
It probably could have been his only one. He really thought about it. It weighed heavy on him, you know.
Yeah, or did it, or he just was obsessed with it, where he always thought.
No, you never know what goes through their head.
Carpets only have an ornamental function. They have many uses. They can cover damaged floor, for example, or they can be quite useful if you want to get rid of a body. In February 2010, following a tip-off, London police discovered the body of 53-year-old Mohammed Taki at a flat in Fulham, West London. Taki's body had been bound with tape and wrapped in a carpet before being buried under the concrete patio. Consequently, the authorities tried to reach out to the flat owner, 52-year-old Roy Heath, who was terminally ill in Trinity Hospice in Clapham, South London. The police managed to interview him a few times to no avail. On the fourth occasion, though, he admitted he had in fact strangled Mr. Taki during an argument and then hid him under his patio for 12 years. Unfortunately, Mr. Heath died before he could give further information to the police, but at least Taki's family, all living in Syria, could finally know what happened to their expat relative and get on with their lives. Number 6. Frank Thorogood. Every time a celebrity dies, it's hard for their fans to let go and accept their departure. For inexplicable reasons, we find the idea of them being assassinated perhaps more comforting than suicide or a fatal accident. So when ex-Rolling Stone Brian Jones's 1969 drowning was ruled an accident linked to drugs and alcohol binges, friends and fans believed Jones had been murdered instead. This theory was supported by the 1994 book Brian Jones, Who Killed Christopher Robin by Terry Rawlings. That book claimed that on his deathbed, construction worker Frank Thorogood confessed to his friend and Rolling Stones driver Tom Keelock that he was the one who murdered Jones. This highly scrutinised claim and other new evidence prompted Sussex police to review the case in 2009, but ultimately they kept it closed. However, in 2019, Netflix released a documentary No Expectation, The Murder of Brian Jones, that seems to support the murder claim, reopening the case 50 years later. Number 5. Geraldine Kelly. Geraldine and John Kelly.
My whole thing, when it's been that long and both parties are dead and gone, just close the case and just, it's been too long. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, but you still want like family members that may still be living to know what happened still.
Man, to be honest, it's 50 years.
I understand
it's gone,
that,
man. Just let it go. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just let it go.
I guess.
Marriage had been cold for years. Actually, it was more than just a cold marriage. Geraldine had suffered abuse from her partner for years, but felt she couldn't leave the father of her 2 children. Then, in 1991, it all became too unbearable for Geraldine, and she turned him into a literally cold husband. She shot him and hid his body in a freezer for 6 years. How did she manage to keep that a secret for so long? She told her children their father died in a car crash, and they believed her. No body, no ashes, no funeral, and yet they believed her. I guess kids really do believe everything their parents tell them. 6 years later, when she began losing her battle with breast cancer, she confessed her crime to her daughter. When Geraldine passed away, her daughter called the police, who checked the freezer and found the man's remains. Despite years of extreme decomposition, thanks to his tattoos, the authorities could identify the body as John's. So thanks to that discovery in the freezer, the family's trauma finally found an end. Number 4. Henry Alexander. Unfortunately, American history, well, history in general I guess, has been marked by countless hate crimes. Some have not been recorded by history, and many have been unjustly dismissed as accidents or suicides. That's the case for 26-year-old African-American Willie Edwards, who in 1957 died from a fall from a bridge along the Alabama River. Officials found his body only 3 months later, at which point, according to them, the decomposition of the body made it impossible to determine the cause of his death. Cut to 1976, when 4 members of the KKK were arrested. However, Alabama judge Frank Embry dismissed all the charges because no cause of death could ever be established.
Wow.
Man, that ain't no cop-out on trying to... For that conviction, bruh, like that's trifling, bruh. That's trifling, man.
In 1992, an unexpected confession gave a glimmer of hope to the Edwards family. Just before dying from cancer, Henry Alexander admitted to his wife that he and 3 other members of the Ku Klux Klan forced Willie to jump off the bridge. The investigation was reopened, and in 1999, the district attorney presented a new case before a Montgomery County grand jury. This subsequently affirmed that Edwards' death was indeed caused by the Ku Klux Klan, but declined to indict anyone specifically for the crime. Number 3. Christian...
Because I know he gave up names. I know he gave up the names. He ain't just tell his wife, you know what I'm saying, it was me and 3 other dudes. He gave up the names because 9 times out of 10 they've been at the house.
Yeah,
she knew who they was. She know who it was.
It's not... That's
Bonkowski. Would you ever confess to being a member of a group of killers that terrorized an entire country for years? Well, in 2017, Belgian Christian Bonowski did just that. Just before he died, he confessed to his brother to being the Giant, one of the 3 men of the gang dubbed the Brabant Killers. They were responsible for a series of 28 murders in the Belgian province of Brabant between 1982 and 1985.
28 murders for 3 years?
Within 3 years. Oh, they was busy.
Ooh, they was more than busy. They were out here getting it. For real.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Damn.
Bronkowski's brother reported that Christian was a former member of an elite police commando unit, the Diana Group. In 1981, following the accidental discharge of his gun, he remained out of work, at which point he became bitter about this abrupt end to his career and began drinking heavily. In that very same year, the gang began their robbery attacks. However, Bonkowski had already been scrutinised as a potential suspect in 2000. A saliva sample and fingerprints had been taken from him, but those comparisons with those contained in the Brabant Gang police file came back as negative. A further DNA analysis was also performed in 2017, following the claim of Bonkowski's brother, but again, that produced no results. Number 2. Shawn. Until what point is a doctor legally bonded to professional confidentiality? During the 1960s, a New Zealand man who's only been identified as Shawn had fallen into the wrong crowd, taking on work as a contract killer. He confessed his crimes to a member of his palliative care team in Auckland City Hospital only in 2018, just days before he died of cancer. He claimed he didn't know his victims' names and made the doctors promise to keep the secret. They agreed, but urged him to write a confession letter to give to the authorities after his passing. However, Shawn died before leaving a letter for the doctors, leaving them in a very tricky moral position. They sought legal advice on how to use the information and even published a paper on the moral and legal implications of their choice. Doctors agreed to not share the man's secret as long as he was alive because they didn't deem him a threat to others. However, after the man had passed away, they shared...
You can't deem him being a threat to others because you never know if he had survived. You never know what he... You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess he hasn't did anything since. Also, I mean, if he's like very like super sick, like he old, like
I'm saying,
can
but
he walk? You know, he probably can barely walk.
What was that? It was a movie where this dude was a killer, and they thought he had came back and started killing, but what he did was he trained somebody. It was a movie I seen. Can't remember. Damn, I was still writing movies down, but he trained somebody else how to. No, it was on Criminal Minds. They thought he was the killer again, but somebody else close to him had been studying. I think it was his son or something. And he started doing the same killing.
But anybody can do that. There's like so many copycat killers, though. But it's not. It's okay.
Shawn's story with the police, but kept the patient's identity a secret to the press. Number 1. Michael Lee Wilson. A man sentenced to death who exonerates 2 other convicts just before his death. It seems quite unbelievable, yet it's exactly what happened in 2014. 2 days before his execution, Michael Lee Wilson confessed he was responsible for the 1994 murder of Karen Summers. Wilson claimed that 2 men, Malcolm Scott and DeMarco Carpenter, who'd already served more than 20 years in prison for the crime, were completely innocent. According to Wilson, on the night of the murder, the police found him with what turned out to be the murder weapon and a car now acknowledged as being the killer's car. he agreed to testify against Carpenter and Scott in exchange for pleading a reduced charge for accessory to murder.
Yo, that is so
That's
jacked
crazy.
up, bro.
Yeah.
So he got caught with the weapon and the car. So
Yeah.
he got caught with the evidence, but because y'all probably already had this case pending towards these two individuals, y'all didn't want to cop out and be like, oh, we got it wrong. Y'all know how a lot of police, we don't want to say we wrong, but we wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they were like, hey, how about this? We'll just pin you as accessory if you can pinpoint them two. We done seen this type of stuff happen a lot.
Witnesses came forward in the years following, claiming Wilson was the actual triggerman, yet Scott and Carpenter kept serving the time for a crime they didn't commit. But thanks to Wilson's admission of guilt, the two men were finally freed in 2016. So those were 10 shocking deathbed murder confessions. Which one shocked you the most?
Bro, that is wild.
I want to say this last one. I think I actually remember.
Kind of remembers parts of it. Like, I don't know. It's just, to me, that's still kind of weird, though.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these ones, man, I'm just like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then a lot of them trying to clear their conscience because they know they're finna die.
Most definitely.
And they don't want it to, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they do believe in heaven and hell. Maybe they don't. You never know. Everybody have their different beliefs. But they like, hey, I want to be able to die with a clear conscience. I don't want any burdens to be held against me once I do cross over, and that could prevent me from.
Definitely.
So they want to say what their guilt, spill their guilt. Like, Mama said, if you ain't got nothing nice, don't say nothing at all. But with that being said, man, let us know how y'all feel about it in the comment section down below. Let us know y'all thoughts and opinions about this one. This one was wild, though. I ain't gonna lie on this one, man. But as always, y'all know how it go. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is
Sharon.
We are,
Kidding,
y'all.
Ain't no time to kick it, got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.